All right, everyone. Let's get to rolling today. Um, you may have noticed that I have given you a different folder of our smart object frames. Went online, downloaded some different frames, and added some. Also created a few frames myself. So let's get started. Um, I'm just navigating directly to where the frames are. We're going to use frame 1 PSD. I'm simply going to right click, open with Adobe Photoshop. If you're unfamiliar with doing it that way, it's just a shortcut way for me to open up images in Photoshop. You can go the regular way of going to File, Open, and navigate to where those folders are, or that folder is, with those new frames there. Okay, here we open up our little frame. We have a frame with a baby in the frame. I really like the frame because it had these little flowers on the outer edges of the frame. And once again, just went to Google, typed in photo frames, downloaded some frames for us to use in class today. But one thing that you'll notice different about this particular frame is that the frame is on a layer by itself. Last week we used some JPEG images where the frame was not on a separate layer. Here I went in and separated the frame from the background to have this frame placed on its own layer. Once again, we're going to follow the same steps of creating a smart object the same way we did last week. We selected our rectangle marquee tool. If you don't have the rectangle marquee tool, but you have the elliptical tool, simply hover over the rectangle marquee or the elliptical key while holding down the left mouse button, and you'll get this tools flyout. So here I'm going to select my rectangle marquee. You see that the shortcut is M. And here I'm simply going to make sure that I'm a little bit oversized of this baby's image. I just want to make sure that I'm covering the entire image. Not trying to be too precise, but just overlapping the image of the baby. From my new layers tool, click new layer in the layers panel. That creates a layer for us, layer number 2. We want to rename it to image layer, so double click there. And I rename this layer my image, so that in that way I will know that this is my layers image, or my image layer. Kind of saying it backwards there. Now I want to fill our selection with a color. It doesn't matter the color. Here I'm filling it with the foreground color. The foreground color field for the keyboard is Alt key and the delete key. Fills that selection with our foreground color. Next, I want to convert it to a smart object by, in our layers panel, right clicking on the layer and select convert to smart object. We now know that we've converted to a smart object because we have our little smart object little icon thumbnail in the layers panel. And now I want to place an image in my smart object by simply double clicking the smart object. The smart object opens. To place my image, from the menu bar, select File, Place. I'm selecting a picture of my granddaughter, Nana. It was her birthday, so we kind of took her shopping. I know that I'm working with a smart object because anytime you place an image in a smart object, it's converted to a smart object. I know that because I see the X across my image. So to resize this image to fill the smart object, I hold down Shift and drag a corner. Remember, when you're making changes to images of individuals and you always want to make sure the proportions are the same, always hold down that Shift. The Shift acts like a lock. It locks the proportion, and make sure you only drag the corner. Now to commit it, I can either click the commit on the toolbar, press enter, or simply double click in the image. Now I must close the image by clicking the X, click yes, and my image is updated. There, let me get rid of that selection. From the menu bar, I can go to select and deselect, but we also see that the deselect control is control and the number, letter D, control D. Okay, so there we have our image of my granddaughter Nana in the shopping cart. So now we want to create a reflection. So here's the way that I kind of do it. I want to group my two layers together here. So I hold it down the control key, I click my layer 1 because my image layer was already highlighted. Either way, you must highlight both layers together. And here we're going to click the group, the new group icon. And basically what that does, it created a group. It created a group here for us. And now we can grab our layers and drop them inside of the group. Okay, there's also a quicker way of doing that. And the quickest way is I could have selected both layers and held down the control key and tapped the G key, and that would have automatically grouped those two layers together. The reason we want to group these layers together is it'll be easier for us to create our reflection because we're dealing with two layers instead of one. So next, I want to grab that group and drag it down to the create new group or new layer icon, and there we see we get a group called one copy. It's a copy of our original group. Now it doesn't matter which grouping we use for the reflection, it still works the same way. So here we're going to use our group 1 copy, and since we already have it highlighted, I'm going to select my move tool, click the move tool, hover over the move tool, and you see that the shortcut key is the V key. In here I'm simply going to grab that layer copy that we made and move it down. Now I want to make sure that it's kind of lined up correctly there. That's beautiful. Next, to flip our image so we get a proper reflection, from the menu bar select edit, transform, and I'm going to flip the vertical. Now I know that we're in the proper orientation. I see that the swirl on the left, little flower swirl on the left, is also in the upper left of my reflected image. So we get let me move this layer up so we can see exactly what we're talking about here. We get a absolute opposite reflection of our image that's above. Here I'm going to move it back down. Now to complete my reflection, in my layers panel, I locate my opacity layer control, and I'm going to bring that opacity down to maybe about 20%. And there we see we get our reflection from our smart object there. Now just to show that it is a smart object and it is working correctly, let's go into, and it doesn't matter which group that we use. We can open up any one of these groups, double click on our smart object. Here I'm going to delete the image that's there. What I did, I simply clicked the trash can, menu bar, file, place, and here I'll choose a different image. Doing the same steps, holding down the shift key, dragging only the corners, double click, close, yes, and we see that my image has been updated, and we also see that our reflection has now been updated also. All right, let's try it now.